So I don't know if you guys have been made aware about this, but Disney is actually pulling Indiana Jones 5 out of theaters at a rapid rate. You guys may have not noticed this, but if you check out all of your showtimes for Indy 5 on Google, for example, type it up, Indy 5 showtimes, scroll throughout the days, and you will slowly see, actually quite rapidly, you'll see these showtimes and even some theaters diminishing quite fast as Mission Impossible rolls into theaters. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and let's get right into exactly what's going on here with Kathleen Kennedy and, of course, the Disney board and why she's in trouble, specifically with Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny. Now, we know that there's a lot of things going on with Kathleen Kennedy over the past couple of weeks. She went way over budget for this film. That was very unnecessary and really not needed. We all know that Kathleen Kennedy made the wrong calls, one after the other, by really making a lot of unnecessary set builds and unnecessary CGI scenes for Indiana Jones 5 that either got put into this movie or just got flat out deleted. That also put Disney into a very big hole with Indiana Jones 5. Now, as part of the box office results for Indiana Jones 5, alright, we know that everything related to this is that it is not going to break even, or it might just break even if they really span this out over the course of a very long time, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, on top of this, alright, with Kathleen Kennedy and others like Bob Iger constantly upselling Indy 5, Kathleen Kennedy recently, of course, however, got into tons of trouble behind closed doors with Disney involving the Dial of Destiny. The main reasoning behind this is that behind the scenes, Kathleen Kennedy cut out an entire expensive ending scene featuring both Indiana Jones, Helena, and Marion on a runway in Casablanca style. Now, Helena, of course, alongside Indiana and Marion, was the original ending featuring all these different characters and was described to be a far more expensive ending for Indy 5, and instead, Kathleen decided to delete this entire ending out of the 6 ones that were shot for a simple reshoot that would take place in a studio shot set build to mimic an apartment that we got in the final cut. Now, originally, Mangold had set up a scene in which Indy was going to meet Marion at the airport during a sunset as Helena watches and walks away with her bags. This was the original prelude to one of the other endings in which, of course, other cameos that got axed before they were completely filmed. Disney realized that Kennedy wasted so much funding on Indy 5 that she is now being questioned about the 5th Indy film and why it was so necessary to film much expensive scenes only to delete them. Now, guys, let me just say one thing here, is that you guys may or may not know this, but Kennedy did indeed make a lot of very bad decisions when it came to building all these different sets, tearing them down for simple minor reshoots, mind you, that went to, of course, a lot of wasted funding of hundreds of thousands of dollars right there for simple set builds, stuff like that. We talked about that months ago. But what's even all the more concerning here for Disney and what they are going through is what they should be really worried about is Kathleen Kennedy did something very similar to The Rise of Skywalker. Now, given that they did not lose money on that film, she did a very similar thing with that movie, which, by the way, cost around $400 million plus, when it came to the overall budget of that film, so it was obviously way more than Indiana Jones. But looking at this scenario, I think that this would have been a very better ending. This was the near final ending, mind you, where they wanted to end it in a more Casablanca style, where both Indiana and Marion were at the airport and, kissing and having a reunion there, and Helena leaves with her bags and gets on a plane. That, to me, I think would have been a little bit more of a cinematic ending as opposed to what we got with the apartment ending, which felt a little too, just a little too generic for me. We also know that there were 6 endings in full that were planned, many of which were fully shot, some of which are only concepts and or partially shot. So we know that Shorty, one of the characters, by the way, Temple of Doom. Kathleen Kennedy did not want him in there in the long run. This was heavily discussed, though, and almost became a part of this movie. We talked about that as well. However, on top of this, Kennedy is also refusing to release these said deleted scenes on the Blu-ray or digital release or streaming of Indy 5, much like how she did with Rise of Skywalker, to hide the contrast of what's good and subpar. The Disney board is said to be very fed up with Kennedy, of course, over Indy 5, and that they want nothing, of course, to do with her for making funding decisions anymore for any Lucasfilm projects. Meanwhile, many board members are actually fighting for Kennedy to stay at Lucasfilm, while others are fighting to get her fired, as she has only caused so much damage to, of course, bringing Star Wars down, and of course, as well as Indiana Jones, and as well as, surprisingly, Marvel, since she convinced Kevin Feige to make some key choices in the MCU. Now, Bob Iger is also getting tons of heat for allowing any of this to happen in the first place, and you know what? Rightfully so. Bob Iger should be getting a lot of heat for this, because you shouldn't have allowed Kathleen Kennedy to stay at Disney, or Lucasfilm, I should say, in the long run. She should have been canned ever since, let's say, 2018. The beginning of that year is when she should have got fired, right after The Last Jedi. There's no other way to say this. She should have got fired in January to March of that year, following, The Last Jedi, and just before its Blu-ray release in April. That's when she should have got let go, and they've held on to her for way too long, and there were a lot of back and forths involved in all of this, by the way, but when you look at Kathleen Kennedy here, you could just see that she's really just digging herself a hole, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And Indiana Jones 5 was a very big problem for her, because now the board is really pulling a blame game against each other. There's a lot of people blaming this, or that on Kathleen Kennedy, and other board members defending her. And this is exactly why we talked about this yesterday, of how there's a lot of chaos at Disney throughout these emergency meetings that have been taking place, that will further continue, by the way, throughout the rest of 2023. So there's a lot of things happening with Indiana Jones 5 right now. Not only are they losing a lot of show times rapidly, but they're not making money on this thing, and neither are they going to make money on, any kind of media sales through Blu-ray or DVD. Just forget about it. Streaming, that's going to be interesting too. How many people are going to watch this on Disney Plus? I don't think so. I don't think a lot of people will be. And a lot of people that I know in my social circles and their social circles, the very few that even liked it, said they probably wouldn't want to watch it again. And that just shows you how much, of an issue this movie really is. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this entire scenario revolving around Kennedy and Iger. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.